Hi everyone, I'm Marnix. I work at BiteMe Games as a creative director and producer, and it has been 1 year, basically, as of the day that I'm recording this, that I have been working here on our own game called Forge Industry, a resource management and automation game. I thought I would sit down for a few minutes now to just simply talk about 5 things that I have learned in the past year, throwing myself into the world of indie development and game development, and sharing with you, some of the key lessons that I've learned and things that maybe surprised me. So stick around. So as a quick history refresher, I've never told this story really, but BiteMe Games was formed by me and 3 other friends on December 31st, 2021. As I'm filming this today, we are January 1st, 2023, and that means that we've been basically a thing for 1 year. Now, our group was formed, we were friends of course before, but our idea for what game we wanted to make and truly working towards the execution and where we are today started that 1 year ago. And before that, we have all studied computer science, but nothing really specific for game development. We have one person, Thomas, who's our lead programmer, who has a lot of Unity experience, but apart from that, we were all very fresh. Of course, because we were so fresh, we had to learn a lot of stuff very quickly, so that's why I'm here today, and let's go over some of the things that I've learned and that may have surprised me. The first thing that I was not prepared for when I started this journey as a game developer is how much stuff you'll actually need to do. When we first started with the idea of Forge Industry, it was quite simple. Thomas and Jamie were going to do a lot of programming, William was going to do our 2D art for maybe all our icons and stuff like that, and I just had to do the 3D modeling that I had to learn, and I would do the project planning, which is not that hard, right? But that didn't last long, because then maybe a month in or so, no offense to William, he dropped out of 2D art and suddenly, someone needed to do it, so who stepped up? Well, I had to take on that one. Some other things, once we started actually making a company, who needed to do the accounting, that one also landed upon me. This YouTube channel suddenly also was part of me, so now I was also the content creator for BiteMe Games. And it just kept on piling up because there's so much things that you simply need to do on your own as an indie developer that you don't really think about when you start. Also, when we went to Gameforce, one of Belgium's largest gaming events, we had to plan everything. We had to set up our booth, we had to see what kind of promotional material do we want, flyers, vouchers, posters, all of those things. You'll be wearing a lot of hats when you're a game developer. Let me tell you that. It's not just programming, it's a lot of things. It's all the silly things that you do not think about, such as taxes. Well, you need to do them if you want to sell a product. Or making marketing material. It's not sexy, it's not cool. I don't know that many people who truly enjoy it and have it as their passion, but it is something that you need to keep in mind that no matter how much you think that you'll be doing certain things, you will need to step up at certain times and very broadly expand your knowledge. The second thing I learned, and that basically all of us at BiteMe learned, is that our time management sucks, and yours probably as well. Not just time management, also project planning and estimation of how long will something take to finish. We started, and don't laugh now, we wanted to make Forge Industry in 1 month. So we were going to do a quick 48-hour game jam where we got familiar with Unity, and then we would, polish it up a bit, and then after a month we would ship it, and then we would work on an actual big project. Yeah, that didn't happen. That really didn't happen. Sometimes I do cry myself to sleep for that one, how foolish we were. It's been more than a year now, and we're still looking at least another 6 months of development. And that's with our track record of how bad we are at planning stuff. So you can wishlist us already on Steam, just maybe don't expect us to release anything in the next 4 years, or that's at least not a guarantee I can give. But this is something that you will, and all of the indie developers that I talk to will make this mistake, is you very much will underestimate how much work it is. Even just small things will suddenly take so much more time that you lose 2 days on I want to rotate my camera in a game, which is there are 5 million tutorials on it on YouTube. How can it still be so hard? Well, a game is simply a very complex program, basically, that just adds so many new things that you need to think about, keep in mind, performance, optimization, how does it look, how does the player interact with it, is it fun, that it just slows down everything a lot and you won't be making progress as quickly as you may think originally. The third one is that working with a team on a game is both a blessing and a curse. And for my team members who are watching this, I'm sorry, but I love you, but sometimes I truly just want to gouge out your eyeballs. The problem is that once you don't work on a project alone, that especially I have this problem, is that you cannot influence everything. So for example, I don't really program in the game, which can be really frustrating if I'm like, this must not be that hard to implement. Please implement it as fast as possible. I have all of these things I need to do. You just need to code this one thing. How hard can it be? And of course, I know that maybe it is hard, but you cannot see for yourself, be like, oh, you know what, screw that. I'll just do it myself. There's a limit to the fine, I'll do it myself when you're working on a game. But don't get me wrong, that's only a small downside in the end, because working with a team is amazing, honestly. The amount of feedback you can get from each other, the friendly banter, you can keep up motivation, keep up spirits. Everything is just a lot more fun when you're working on a game in a team as well, if you ask me. And you have simply more man hours to work on a game, meaning that even if you have horrible time management, at least you'll finish it a bit quicker than if you're working on a project alone. And then our fourth one is saying no becomes really hard. And what I mean to that is saying no to features. That's basically also how we have gone from we'll make this game in 1 month to 1.5 years at the current estimation, is because we did not say no. Our original scope was very limited, and then we just kept on expanding, because we were like, hey, wouldn't this be a cool feature? It shouldn't be that hard. And we're like, yeah, indeed, let's add in dynamic markets with a full simulation of supply and demand. Easy, right? It's really gonna add a lot of value to our game. And sure, it will add a lot of value to our game, but the cost is that suddenly development takes 2-3 weeks extra. And I don't know if you know this, but usually making up a new idea of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, takes my 5 minutes tops, more like 20 seconds to just say the idea. And then everyone is like, yeah, let's do that. And then suddenly that's 3 weeks extra of work that you'll need to do. This is what we call scope creep. We've already talked about scope creep in a few previous videos, that it's one of the biggest pitfalls as well. But saying no gets even harder when you're not alone on a project. So when I have a mechanic that I'm like, this is really cool, but I shouldn't do it. It's okay, I can completely internalize that dialogue of why should we not do it. When one of my team members comes to me and is like, hey, you know, this is actually a really cool idea. I truly believe in this idea. I want to implement it. But of course, going back to the previous point, he can't do it alone. He needs a team to help him with it. If we then have to say like, you know, our scope is already too big, it feels kind of, you know, a dick move to say. Because maybe they already made some concessions on adding your crazy ideas to the game. And here you get some really tough discussions sometimes of, okay, maybe we should just accept that this will not get into the final game and we should just move on. One example I can think of that is we are planning, but honestly, thinking about it, we shouldn't do it, is, so you get a bit of insight. I had the idea of trains in our game Forge industry. And you know, I cook up the models for a train and some train tracks in one afternoon. But of course, I think it's really cool because trains, but I'm not the one who has to suddenly implement our new pathfinding technology, our new, like, how would all of this work, all of the windows, all of the storage logic, all of, you know, routing trains. It's not the easiest thing to do. And that's where you need to be able to be like, you know, Marnix, hold on a moment. Let's see, do we really need trains? Is this really going to be worth our time? Or do we just want to ship a game and then maybe we'll revisit trains half a year after we've released our game? This is probably one of the hardest things to do because, as I'm saying this, you know, the smart move would be indeed no trains, let's skip it and let's focus on everything else. But just getting to that point where you can say no, that's the real struggle. And then this last one really surprised me, honestly, when I got into game development, was finding out that there's actually quite a big scene out there. You know, you have all the Discords, but I mean like in real life. So in Belgium, at least, that's where we're located. You know, when we go to those gaming events like Gameforce, we meet a lot of people in the industry. And then through that, I got introduced to, you know, some networking events where we talk about games and where all of the Belgian game developers get together. We also learned that, you know, Belgium has a lot of game grants, so if you're a game developer in Belgium, you can get money from the government, and Belgium is not alone in that. A lot of the European countries actually after some research, I found out have this. I don't know how it is in Europe, but there's always a community of real world people, basically, who's in your vicinity that I never knew about. And hey, they're actually quite chill because, you know, you're all making games. And I think there's true power in really meeting up with them, networking them, getting to know your local game scene or like your country's game scene if it's not too big. So in summary, I'll quickly go over it again. I have had to wear so many more hats than I expected. I've just become every single role you can think of in 1 year, which has been a really valuable crash course basically into everything game development. Your time management also sucks, so even if you think that something is only gonna take a month, you know, multiply it by however high of a number and you'll probably still be wrong. Working with others is both a blessing and a curse, and I think you should really focus more on the blessing instead of the curse. Just know that nothing in life is perfect. Saying no, especially to cool features, is one of the hardest things that you'll have to do during development. Not the actual implementation, but actually saying no to the ideas. And there is a very vibrant and active community out there in the real world for you to explore about game development, and you should fully harness that. So that's just a quick roundup of everything that I've learned. Are there things that you've learned if you're an indie developer or things that you've been wondering about? Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'll try to get back to you on that one. Apart from that, if you're new here, well, I already explained a bit. We're BiteMe Games, we're making our own game and we're documenting, you know, what we're learning and just our journey as well through devlogs on this YouTube channel. If that's something that interests you, be sure to subscribe, as it's a win-win for both of us, as we'll upload this weekly content that I think you'll find informative quite often. So without further ado, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next week.